So, have you ever had the thought, and I'm sure a lot of us have, we all know that we formed all these bad habits early on in our golf swing that are now so hard to get rid of. And so we keep trying to fix this swing that we have that we know has some problems. It's hard to sort out really what they are. So, but have you ever had the thought, if I could just go back in time, if I could just go back to being back to my childhood, learn some basic fundamental things the right way, if I had done that, it would be so much easier for me now. I wouldn't have these things, but I've ingrained these terrible habits. So I had that thought. And what I decided to do was, what if I just recreate the experience of learning a swing again, instead of bothering with the swing I already have, which was, worked, it was okay, didn't have to be upset about it, but it wasn't everything I wanted. So, first thing I did is I thought about what happens when you give a little child a golf club. So, when you think about it, all the great swings are created by children, right? You have a small child, you look at tapes of Tiger as a child, Rory McIlroy, those swings were invented not by some adult telling that child what to do. They were invented by the child interacting with this tool. So what if you just think, what if I just start interacting with this tool? And so if I was a child and picked this up, first thing I would think about is, what does this thing just do, right? So I would just probably be exploring it, explore the nature of this thing and how does my body interact with it. And then the one thing that happens with children that becomes hard for adults is, because they're very small and aren't very strong, it's hard to swing really badly for them. So if I have the strength level of a child, I'm going to naturally start using the big muscles of my body. I'm going to toss the club back and throw it through. My own child, when he was maybe 4, took a video. His swing looked pretty good, and he never pursued golf, but he doesn't swing like that anymore because he didn't stay with it. But so I thought, what if I just start interacting in a way that's fundamental to this object? So I just worked on little things where I would just be aware. Okay, I'm just aware of how this thing swings, and I'm just going to move with it. So it has a nature. I'm not going to impose my ideas that I should do this or that, or a swing should look like that, or looking at a picture. I'm just going to interact with it based on its own nature. And then I thought, the one thing I could do differently was, if I made a tool that was sort of relatively as heavy as a child would experience a golf club, then the natural way that you would interact with this tool as an adult would actually be much closer to how a child would interact with a golf club. So that was the basis of this. And then the reason the grips are separated is because the mass makes you feel the sense of how to use your body, but if you tried to swing that mass off of one point, now you've got 10 times the leverage of a golf club. So that feels very awkward and out of control, and maybe even a little bit dangerous. So that was my basic idea for making this. And then I thought, well, what if instead of, so people are always trying to learn, you have to swing back on plane, come through on plane. What if I made something where now that activity is again intuitive, right? It becomes, most people swing a golf club, and that's because the golf club has a design like this where the mass is a little bit out here, and so there's something about the golf club that wants to flip open and flip closed. And then you see somebody swinging, and you see that they don't, from where you're standing as a golfer, it would seem to make sense to go back this way because that's where the path is going. But from your own point of view, the swing really actually needs to seem as if it's going straight backwards. So that's one thing that gets people confused. And then they go this way, which then leads to going this way. So that's why so many people create these over-the-top swings. And also why, if you don't do something different right off the bat, any attempt at swing change is probably pretty futile. So that's one thing. So can I create something that, first of all, you're starting over and you have a different idea. So I'm not starting over with where I'm standing, my posture. I'm just starting over intuitively with an object and creating a motion. So that motion is to just move this back and forth, and you'll see that I literally learned to sequence with this at the age of 60 after having not had this kind of move for years. And it's just because this tool, once you surrender to it, that becomes natural to kind of go down and toss, heave it up, go down and toss. So you're getting a nice full body move if you surrender to the nature of this. So, and then the other parts of it, so you've got the move, and that's fundamental, and that's important, I think, because if you think about how a child develops a swing, they don't start with, I'm going to do all these things and then I'm going to move. They create a move, they figure out how to land that move, right? So first thing is you got to move. Maybe it's moving around too much, but you're not going to then give up the move. You're just going to figure out, how do I keep that move more in one place? So that's number two. Number one is get a nice flowing sequence. Number two is, how do I keep it in one place? And then how do I control, number three, how do I control the club face? So what you figure out with this is club face control here. So if I'm just moving this way and I can land this thing in one place and I'm keeping my arms, you can see the structure of my arms is just built into this. If I keep the structure of my arms such that they don't do this, as Mo Norman would describe, twisting and turning, if I keep the structure of my arms like this through the swing, then I've got a face that's square to path. So now what do I need? Well, all I need then, not to say any of this is easy, this is a process that takes months and months. Don't think that if you're trying to build a new swing, you'll get it. You won't even be aware of some of your habits, so you have to really attune yourself to say, what is my habit that I'm going back to? Like, really pay attention. But then, if I can get that fundamental move down in here, and I can square it face to path, then it's really just a question of landing it in the right place. So landing it in the right place is, how close do I stand? How far away do I stand? How open? How closed? If I'm keeping the rest of that constant, and I can figure out where to stand, I should be able to produce a pretty good shot. So that's the basis of that. And the trainer is really designed to apply force in this area. So it doesn't deal with, in a golf swing, you would actually do this, and this, and this, and this, which is not advisable with this. It's much too slow. So there's another part up there, and I'm actually working on a different trainer to deal with that aspect. But really the biggest aspect is get a great motion, figure out how to control the club face, and then figure out where to land it. And that's most of what golf is. And then, of course, all the microscopic details of how far do you hit it, you know, all the kind of little finesse things that you add on top of that. But my whole system is built for this very idea that the fundamental is a motion that is synchronized with the object. So your feeling of the object, whether it's the trainer your sense of where this is in space, how it interacts with gravity, that's a fundamental you can only build inside your own body. So once you've built that fundamental, then you figure out how to apply it to things.